Welcome to the Low and Slow podcast.
We're your girls, Crystal and Laken. If you press play today, trust, you made the right decision.
And know, whenever you're listening to this, it's exactly the right time.
We invite you to pull up a seat to the conversation, get curious about your current perspective,
and lean in for the opportunity to see yourself in another woman's story.
We created That Girl Magic because we've been where you are.
Here, the talk is real and the breath is steady.
Let's get into your next mindset shift.
I'm going to paint the scene for you. You're in bed, it's late. You're not even really scrolling anymore. You're just kind of holding your phone and your thumb's doing all the work here. And then you see it, and it's her announcement, her achievement, her house, her body, her baby, whatever the thing is for you. And something starts to happen in your chest before you can even have a logical thought about it, before you formed an opinion, before you've decided anything, your body has already reacted. And then you say the thing that you always say. You're like, okay, I'm being ridiculous. I'm happy for her. And you put the phone down and you lie there and you feel awful. 45 minutes until you actually fall asleep and you can't figure out why. Because there's the duality of something that's happening. You're happy for her. That part's true. And then there's a gap between what you meant and what your body did. And that's what we're getting into today.
Yes, welcome to the Low and Slow podcast. And we're talking about that comparison trap today, ladies. And we're not going to sit here and tell you like, oh, comparison is a thief of joy. Like, you know that, right? Like, we've all said that. We've probably said it to ourselves while we're actively comparing ourselves to somebody else. And you know that it's not productive, and you know that social media is curated and it's not all real. And you know that, you're just comparing your average Tuesday to somebody's highlight reel, and you have all that information. Those are all things that we've heard before. But the question isn't whether you understand that. It's more of understanding, okay, well, if I know all that, then why haven't I been able to stop the comparison? And what we're going to actually look into today is the idea that comparison is not purely an insight problem. This goes along with what we've said a bunch of times and what we've stolen from Melissa of like trying to deal with, thinking or feeling, what is it? Thinking problems with feeling solutions.
Trying to solve feeling problems
with thinking solutions. Yeah. And
That's
so
shout out to Melissa.
Shout out. And it's understanding that it's not just about the insight. Comparison is actually a habit that is ingrained with a structure, and it's running on top of a story that you're holding on to about your own worth. And there's two separate mechanisms here. And most women only ever work on one of them usually. And that's exactly what keeps us coming back in this loop. So we're going to call it what it is. You don't have a comparison problem. As always, you have a comparison pattern. And the good thing is that patterns have parts, and parts can be taken apart so we can look at them.
Yes, let's break this down. Let's rip this apart. Peel back some of the layers of this onion, right? Why, when your body gets there before your brain does, and then we start to feel some type of way about it, right? So I want to share something because I want to name why your body gets there before your brain does. And a client just actually had this moment. This was a woman who she genuinely loved, like genuinely respected. The woman announced that something that she had that she wanted for a very long time. And she felt her whole chest go tight. She felt it in her face. She felt that little drop in her stomach, right? Mm-hmm. And in the same breath, she was typing, like congratulations, all the exclamation points, right? And both things can be true at the same time because they were, right? Mm-hmm. But she sat with that for days. And this was the thing that kept eating at her, right? Is that what she came to is that her body didn't read that announcement as information, right? It scanned it as a threat. Mm-hmm. Right? Because then she started because of where someone else was achieving, where she was at, right? She said, okay, to herself, like, okay, well, where do I stand now, right? Am I still safe where I am? Am I still enough here where I am? And here's the piece where a lot of women don't want to admit this, that's what's happening in the narrative. So like shout out to her for even just being able to bring it up and being vulnerable to say, yeah, I felt this way. Because for a lot of us, that scan got installed early, right? Like if you grew up in a house where maybe love or attention or approval was comparative, where you were like the easy one or the smart one or the one who doesn't cause any rifts or problems, then you learn that your place wasn't fixed. It was ranked, right? Like a rank has to be checked, right? Has to be earned. So you're checking for that constantly, right? And your checking it feels like security, right? Because if you're aware of it, then like you can get to that feeling quicker. And it started as a safety strategy, right? That constantly checking in, scanning the room, like seeing where you were on the board, right? And your body learned that knowing where you stood, right? Knowing where you stood with other people or in other dynamics was the same thing as knowing whether you were okay. And it's not a weakness or like a downfall on yourself, right? But this is something where we want to normalize that this is a wiring that happens. This is your nervous system, again, doing the exact job that it was trained to do to keep you safe. It's scanning for your position because at some point that position determines safety, right? And your body is always listening. It just doesn't know that, hey, the assignment's changed here. Right? That this is not the same pattern that you had to do that you grew up with, even now as a grown adult and, other things are happening in your life. So your body's always listening. It just doesn't know, like, girl, that ain't the assignment anymore. It's no longer keeping us safe.
Yeah, and it wasn't really the announcement that ruined her night, right? It's like that announcement was maybe 3 seconds of the whole situation. The rest of it was this cycle that plays out. And the cycle has 3 components to it, and they usually play out in a similar order, right? It's like 3 beats. So like beat 1, the initial thing is the trigger. That's going to be usually something visual that enters your field, right? Like a number or a milestone, another person's body, a timeline benchmark that they're reaching. And it's usually something visible, and that's not a coincidence. And we'll come back to that as to why that's the case. Beat 2 is the spiral. So this is where you start to narrate and you go off the rails, right? Like, and it's important to listen to the language here because that's the part that really matters. Then the narration doesn't sound like an attack. It only sounds like an observation, right? So it's she's further along, or I should be there by now, or I've been at this longer than she has. And so it presents itself as like neutral reporting. And that's why you don't resist it. You don't fight it because you're not going to argue with a fact. You're just stating facts. And then beat 3 is the hangover. This is the part that nobody names because it's the really uncomfortable part. It's the part that we tell ourselves that we're not really feeling when we're just happy for those other people, right? But it's the part that actually costs you. So, 20 minutes later, an hour later, the next morning, that shame, that self-attack, that weird, like, flat feeling where you struggle with making a decision, or you don't want to open your laptop, you don't want to do your workout, you find yourself doing random shit like organizing a drawer instead of doing the things that you were supposed to do to keep yourself on track or in line with your goals. And the mislabel is that you will treat that icky feeling or that like disassociation as the evidence. And you think like the fact that I feel this bad means that something's wrong with me. I'm the problem, right? And that's not the case. It's just that the hangover is just the habit, the comparison habit finishing its loop, right? So back to that visibility part that we were talking about earlier, that it has to be something that's visible or visual. Comparison can only ever measure what's on the outside. So when we look at followers or income bracket or the ring on somebody's finger or a dress size, right? Like those are the only inputs that are available to it. So if you're running a comparison between your full interior experience and versus her external output that she's putting out there, this is what we call like the comparison to the highlight reel. It's apples to oranges. It's not even the same category of information that you're working with. And so the metrics that you're using are not ones that you picked out, right? These are ones that were usually inherited or strapped in that backpack that you like to reference and put on put on your back to carry around because it's heavy. And someone else decided that like the timeline for marriage or the income that you were supposed to get to or the body goals were the scoreboard, and you're playing on it, most likely losing on it and feeling personally responsible for that score. And you can't lose a game that you didn't agree to enter, but you also can't stop losing while you're still keeping score.
Yeah. Yeah, like that comparison is like that's honestly a game you will never win.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's like you're not even measuring it in the same way. Like even just how you said it of like the external and then the internal of like, that's why when people are like, happiness is an internal job. Yeah. And like your happiness of someone, what is externally, a lot of times people are externally happy and they're living their lives, but then they're miserable inside. Right. And it's because we're not measuring it off the same things. And I want to slow this down because I think like what we would call the hangover, I like that. It deserves more than just a mention, right? I want to tap into what this actually feels like from the inside. It's not just sadness. Sadness would be easier. It's more like it's more like being caught or like being exposed, right? The light's being shined in like a dark corner here, right? Something got exposed. It's this hot, almost like icky, small, like humiliating feeling because it's like, it's not about her. It's about you having the need to check, right? You feel embarrassed that it still gets to you, right? And then you add that second layer. And so now you're not just comparing, but you're ashamed of the comparing, right? So now this is like the internal. Now you're starting to like do this to yourself. It's less now about the 3 seconds of what you saw. And now it's like this internal loop you have yourself in. And here's the thing is like for majority of women that admit to themselves that they're doing this, you're a woman who's done the work. You have all the language for this, right? You are someone who teaches even people this sometimes. And then you're lying in bed, still doing the math about someone else's life. And the shame that you're carrying from that is heavier than the original spiral ever was, right? And can we validate you for a second, sis? Like, it makes sense, right? Yeah. Please hear that. Like from us, it makes complete sense that the body that is trained to check for its position is going to keep checking, right? It's going to keep making sure, like, in comparison, am I good here? Right? If that's what's happening out here, like, what's that one movie we watched on the plane? Am I okay?
Yeah.
Right? That literally is a perfect example. And it makes complete sense that a woman who has worked this hard on herself can feel betrayed when her body doesn't cooperate with her insight, which is why the brain and the body being on 2 separate pages, there's this next level after this work where you do want to embody the things, right? And if your brain is telling you something, you're doing the work to have it tell you something different, but then your body isn't, that's when they're still operating on 2 separate teams. And the other thing I want to name here is like the envy of it all, right? Because most of us have been taught that envy is like ugly. Like envy is like a sin. Envy is like the thing that makes us small, disloyal, or like this bad person, right? So like the second we feel it, we like immediately want to hide it that we're envy. Like some people don't even own saying like, oh, I'm jealous, right? Like, oh, I'm not a jealous person, but like you are, right? We start to congratulate louder, or we compliment harder, or we perform like this like generous version of us. But when you keep burying that envy, you lose like that only honest signal in the whole event, because that was the body talking to you, right? That was the signal coming from your body. Envy is not a verdict, pound the gavel, judge on your character, right? It's your body pointing at something that you want and that you haven't let yourself claim out loud, which is the embodiment piece, right? How often do we see another woman that maybe is embodied in that way, right? And we're starting to feel that kind of way about ourselves because maybe we're not there, but it doesn't mean you're not there. It's just you're comparing it to where she is. There's a version of your own embodiment there. And it's then being able to like sit with that and be like, okay, well, how do I want to embody this for me? Like, how do I want to be more expressed like that? And this is where I think in the comparison, we can start to I say all the time, women are expanders for each other. Can we start to see someone else as, can we listen to that signal coming from us and then use it as inspiration rather than comparison, and know that like what you're seeing in that woman is also available in you in your own way. So that tightness in your chest is not evidence that you're a bad person. It's just the first marker of its location in your body.
Yeah. So I want to get practical for a second on like kind of working through when this comes up. So there's 3 moves in this practice that are helpful, and doing it in the order that we list is going to be the most helpful, because most women will do move 1 and then they'll watch it fail and then they'll decide that again they're the problem, right? Or this doesn't work. That happens a lot. So the first move is to interrupt the spiral physically, not just mentally. So we're getting out of the head and getting back into the body, right? So this means that we are moving somehow or changing our environment. The only place that this habit is interruptible is the gap between the trigger and the narration that is going to play out in your mind, right? And that gap is only going to be about 2 seconds wide, and you're not going to be able to think your way into it or out of it, because thinking is already a part of this spiral. So it has to be physical. This looks like, closing the app and standing up, or putting the phone face down on the counter and deciding to take time away from it, going to another room, or taking yourself outside, let your feet touch grass, right? Or getting your face in the sunshine, or, playing with your dog and like removing yourself from what's happening actively. And then saying it, like naming out loud for yourself that this is a habit at work. The comparison is a habit at work. Not, oh, I shouldn't feel this way, right? Not, don't let the shame come in. Not, oh, well, she deserves this and I'm so happy for her. Those are arguments that you're going to lose, because you're just labeling the process. That's the goal here. And it's just getting reps in, and you will probably do it really badly the first like 40 times before it starts to catch on, because it's going to be very different than what you're used to doing, where you're going to let yourself go into that spiral. And the goal is to be able to just pick something that you can do on your worst day. So everybody can just stand up and move to another room, right? It doesn't have to be anything big. Sometimes we get caught up in like, oh, like go for a walk outside. Yes, that'd be great. But if that's not available to you, or if that's not something you can do on your worst day, pick something that's really simple that you can do on your worst day.
Even too, I just want to add in here of like the physical, it doesn't always have to be like this elaborate thing. Like sometimes when something's coming up in the body, it's literally just like clapping your body, like letting your body know like, hey, I'm here on the other side, or, like sitting on the floor and just kind of like rocking side to side, like just doing something physical where the body can feel that, hello, you're here. You've heard what's come up from it. Because so often that's the first thing that, like the physical is the first thing we disregard until it's really a problem.
Yeah, like give yourself that tactile feedback.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to interrupt the spiral physically with the body. Then the next move is we're going to identify the envy that you spoke about instead of covering it up or trying to hide it. So after the fact, again, not during, because you probably won't be available for that. So again, move the body first, take some space from it. And then after the fact, write down the exact thing that you envied and be specific. And don't, like, generalizing would be like, oh, her life, right? No, get specific on, is it the income? Is it the time freedom? Is it the way that her partner shows up for her? Is it the fact that she took 3 weeks off and went to Europe, right? Like what is the thing that you're envious of? And then strip that person out of the sentence. So literally delete her name, delete the her. And then what's left is a want. And the want is what's yours, right? She was just walking past holding it and caught your attention, and your body noticed and was like, ugh, like that doesn't feel good, right? So now we get to do something with it, because envy that gets identified can become a direction, right? Like, oh, I want to move toward that thing that I want instead of shaming myself for it. And then envy that gets buried, that, like we said, that becomes the hangover. And then once you identify the NB, this is where we can use that. And this is the part that most people struggle with because it doesn't feel good and they don't want to go into it. And this is why they work with us so we can get into the story, right? But we're finding the worth sentence underneath that. So we're going to take that original NB statement, for example, like she's further along than me in XYZ, whatever the success marker is. And then we're going to remove her. And then what's left, what we just mentioned, that's like what that means about you. Right? What does that mean about me? In this example, I'm behind. And that is a belief that you're holding on to. And she was never the actual subject of that belief. She was just a delivery mechanism. Again, it was just showing you a snippet of, oh, this is a reminder of something that I'm holding against myself. And that's why a pause alone, right, or the redirection alone is going to stop working. This is why we said, like, don't stop at the first move, because that's only going to last temporarily. Because every time you're interrupting the delivery of the message, your body already agrees with it. So you can't pause your way out of a worth deficit. That is where you have to do more of the inner work. Your nervous system is going to keep running that same like threat scan as long as the underlying story is that my position determines my safety or my worth. Right. And so the pause is going to buy you that 2 seconds, but the worth work is what makes the 2 seconds really matter and is going to make it sticky. So what this would look like in total, right, is pick one metric that you've been measuring yourself against, whether it's followers or revenue or timeline or body weight, whatever it is, name it out loud as borrowed because it is. So for example, like, this is something that I did not design on my own, right? It was either inherited or pushed upon me by either society or a parent or whatever it is. It's borrowed. Then name one value it has nothing to do with, not the goal of value, and how you want it to work, how you want to be with your people, how you want it to work for you in your life, what kind of pace is actually like sustainable for you. And then for 1 week, every time you come up against a decision, check it against the value instead of that metric that you've been using to compare most of the time. And it's not something like you don't have to delete your whole Instagram. You're just changing the scoreboard that you're operating on. So instead of saying, okay, I'm only operating against this metric that is not really mine to own, I'm going to start to operate within my own value system instead.
I think what's interesting about it is like I know, when you break down the practical side of it, it's like in my mind for anyone that even just hears like embodiment and they're like, what the fuck is that? Right? Like it is what we were talking about, the comparison earlier of like apples to oranges. If another woman is in a specific place that you are not in, whether that be career-wise, whatever it is that's external, it's like what's happening within you. It's like whatever was activated, if we do not give that the space to really peel back the layer of the onion that's there, we're just going to keep getting re-triggered by everyone's different thing. And it keeps us in our victim mentality. So it's like, why is that so important to you, right? Like, what does it mean about you? What does it mean about you that you're not there, right? What are some things that could change so that you could be there, right? And you just start to get more curious with yourself while not shaming your body for doing what your body has had to naturally do to bring it up as an issue to you, right? Like to bring it to your attention. The body had to have a response for your mind to even get on board that it's a problem. Because you can very well tell, I'm fine, it didn't bother me, right? No, your body knows it bothered you, right? And if this is something that you saw that you want to embody or that you want to do or you want to achieve or you want to, like, it's almost like the aura, like whatever that was external there that you want, like, can we start to just get really curious about, it's not like, I think when it comes to like the worthiness thing, right? It's like, this is not something that's not available within you, but you just don't believe it yet because you don't have the evidence of it, of yourself, like in yourself yet. And so if another woman is going to be that evidence, like, can we get curious about, if we're all mirrors, right? Like how how can that be accessible in me? And this ranking that I've been doing to keep me safe, right? It's only actually keeping me small. It's only actually keeping me stuck. It's only actually keeping me in a place where the more I continue to rank myself, like, when am I ever going to be at the top? Right. And that's where, like, with worthiness, it's like, if I don't feel worthy to be at the top, I'm always just going to keep comparing to someone else.
Yeah.
So
that's where I think we have to change the metric, right? It's like, for example, like almost every woman, whether they admit it or not, has at some point run a comparison when it comes to like body size,
mhm,
right, against another woman. So if the metric is size, that number, whether it's, you know, like the number on the scale or the size tag or whatever it is, like the, you know, or the version of your body from 6 years ago before you ever had any kids or whatever it is that you're comparing yourself against, like that you keep as a reference point is like this photo in your head. But the one that decides whether you're allowed to feel good or not this week is like all tied into that, right? And it's like, can we name that again as something that was borrowed? Like I didn't invent this as the measurement, right? Like it's I didn't decide that size 4 was an ideal size or whatever. It's like, this is stuff that's handed to us by an industry or, you know, social media, decades of magazines and weight loss, you know, genre or niches, whatever it is. And it's like, or even worse, like whoever first commented on my body when I
mhm,
was, you know, growing into it. And I've
mhm.
been running my life against this standard, and I never actually like looked at it to see if it was something that I wanted to sign up for, that I agreed to begin with. And so that's where it's like, can I start to recognize that? And like you're saying, can I see the mirror that's available to me and the other woman? But a lot of women can't get to that point until they understand like where the metric came from in the first place. Right. It's like, and then
Yeah.
can I rework that to be a value that actually means something to me instead of something that was pushed on me by everybody else?
Right. Like, why is even, like, let's just go with the size, right? Like, okay, this thing of like a 4 or whatever, like, what, after having kids, right? It's like, oh, she bounced back so quick, right?
Yeah.
And it's just like, okay, well, what about, like, what is so important to you? What does it mean about you to have bounced back quickly after having a baby, or like to look a certain way after having a
Right.
baby, right? Or to, I mean, it's also, it's like a completely different journey of, like, you don't know, like, everyone has a different birth, everyone has a
Yeah.
different body, genetics, all the things, lifestyle, right? Like, I don't know. I think it's, the value switch for that is like, I think some women have a hard time even understanding why they care about it so much. Cause like you said, it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't, they don't know where it comes from. Right.
Yeah.
Or if they've struggled with that area for most of their life, and, you know, and their mom bounced back or whatever, you know, like,
Yeah. Yeah, when
yeah,
we look at like the goal versus the value, the
right,
goal is
right.
like, oh, I want to look like her, or I don't, you know, I don't want to have a stomach anymore, or I want to get to this certain, I want to get to my pre-baby weight, right? Or whatever it is. Like the goal is like this weird metric that's most often in our head based on either, like we said, a previous version of ourselves or another woman that we're looking at, whether it's our mom or, you know, a friend or whoever it is. And it's like a value is going to be more of a way of operating. So if it was like, I want to be in a body that I actually feel good in, right? Like
Mhm.
I want to be in a body that I can chase my kids in. I want to be in a body that I can like move easily day to day. Like, can we
Yeah.
actually start to look at what is the value of the thing that you're seeking that actually means something to you and works for you in your life?
Yeah. It reminds me of my client the other day. I've loved working with her. Our very first call, she took a step of, she was telling me about social media, and, you know, we took action right on the call. I said, okay, girl, pull out that thing. We're changing your profile picture. We're doing the bio. We got a post posted. The next session she came on, she already had a post posted. Right. And like, she's been doing good with it. And just to be able to hear her from the first to the second call have a value switch, and like, that's a
Mm-hmm.
real life example, right? Of, there was at one point, it was like, I just want to be skinny. You know, I just
Mm-hmm.
want to be skinny because skinny meant that I looked good, that I felt good, that, you know, and again, that skinny, whatever that interpretation is to you, but there was a movement around that, like low rise jeans, skinny, you didn't have any extra, no muffin,
Mm-hmm.
nothing, right? And she's like, I've realized I've come from this generation where that was the value of like being skinny meant you were healthy. Being skinny meant you were accepted. Being skinny meant you were chosen. Right. And she said, and now we were taking a picture in my workout class, and I said, I don't want to be skinny anymore. I just want to be strong. And it was like something so simple like that, where it's like, that was the value switch for her, right? I just want to be strong. And I am in my 50s, and I'm breaking barriers, and I'm changing the narrative, because it's not about being skinny anymore. It's about actually like, do I have the strength to keep up with my life, right? To keep up with my grandchildren, to keep up with, all the activities that I want to do. And when I look in the mirror, I don't want to be this fragmented, skinny little thing. Like I want to be able to carry my groceries and, be able to go on hikes and all the things. So it's like a value switch like that sometimes can be as simple as like a statement change, but like you have to know the importance of what you were putting on it. Where did that come from? Like, why did that have so much value or power over you in the first place before we can just decide to change it?
Yeah.
So I want to say
like
something.
The audit opportunity comes up a lot, right? It's like in real time, it's like, can you apply that? Again, that's what the practice is in those triggers. So, when you're getting dressed in your closet and you hate everything that that you are putting on, right? And you're like over criticizing yourself. It's like women do this where we'll like put all these like goal clothes and keep those at the forefront. And then we like stuff everything that fits that we don't like away. And it's like, we try to use it as like motivation, but that doesn't help if you're hypercritical of yourself every time you're looking at all the things that you don't feel good when you're wearing, right? So like in that example, like the metric will talk about, I have to keep my aspirational stuff visible because it's motivating. And like the value is where like, if I actually look at this, like I'm getting dressed in a room that's been telling me something bad about myself for how many years? Like, can I just change the environment to like feel better in a routine that I'm doing every single day?
Yeah. Or something that when I open up the closet, it's not screaming at me, right? Like there was a point in time in my journey where I opened up the closet and like, I'm like, I don't like any of this shit that's in here. It's muted. It's like, it's kind of baggy, right? And for no reason, but it's just like, it's not me anymore. And this is like, I've used this analogy so many times since we got back from Costa Rica of like, there's so often we have outgrown, it's like a crab. We've outgrown that shell, but we keep the old shell there like a prize, like a trophy of like, in case I ever need to go back in, at least I have a home,
Yeah.
No, that shit doesn't fit anymore, right? Like you got out of that shell. We are not Mr. Krabs and SpongeBob. Like, no, we need a new one. Like we don't fit back into the old shell, and we don't need to keep, it's like in college when people would put the empty bottles of their alcohol bottles on top of the thing. Cringe. Like, get rid of that shit. Yesterday was the full moon. Let's purge all of that. If there's something that is in your environment that's not like, that is screaming at you just by you being, right? Like literally existing. No, that's like a sign. Can we get rid of that? Because it's like, that's where you're bracing, like doing something like getting ready every day. That is the number one challenge for women when they don't feel good, right? That could spiral and send their whole mood, ruin their whole evening, ruin their whole day. Like, can we speak to the part of you that's already bracing, because the ranking that was happening, that's what kept you safe. And I need you to actually let that land and not just hear it, right? Like the ranking kept you safe before. It's also keeping you small now, because you're constantly you're bracing for that time where you will have to check your position, and your position is going to be how you stay oriented in rooms where your place wasn't guaranteed. Like there wasn't a for sure spot for you. And it's how you knew when you needed to prove, or when you needed to work harder, or when you needed to shrink, or when you needed to be more easygoing, right? And for a while that worked, right? But that's also why it's still here. So, we're not going to shame this out of you. That's just a comparison that pointed inward with some better vocabulary, right? Like support. Can you give yourself some support before you apply the pressure, right? And if you know that this is something like, for example, getting dressed, right? Before you even open up the closet, you're already like, oh, I don't even know what the fuck I'm going to wear, right? And honestly, it's like, well, what you're going to wear is, I know that we feel it's most important, but as long as you have clothes on your body, right? Like that's,
Also, it's like, instead of how am I going to look, it's like, what would I feel best in?
well, yeah, right. As long as you have clothes on your body, like what would I feel best in? If that's jeans and a t-shirt, great. If that's leggings and a, you say all the time, like you're not a dress girly. That's fine. Let's
Yeah, I'm like, I
wear
want to
what
be
you would feel
comfortable.
best in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Function over fashion.
And and everyone's different. I'm the opposite. I'm like, no, fashion, let me eat down. And I don't, it's going to be different for everyone, but like, why put yourself in something like, it's like the whole idea of like fitting in jeans that either no longer fit you or they're too big for you that you're then complaining and tugging at and all the things. It's like, no, we just got to get rid of those. What we're doing is so much honestly gentler than it sounds, because every single time you notice the spiral and you bring your attention back to your own body, your own values, right? How you want to feel, your actual own life rather than the external, you're starting to practice coming home to yourself. You're starting to, when we talk about like, what would it feel like, right? So often with weight loss, we think it's the scale and all the things, but it's like, oh, are we sleeping better? Do we have more energy, right? Like, can we get back in touch with the feeling? When we get back in touch with the feeling, that's when embodiment is even accessible, right? That's when we can start to hone more of that skill. And this is not something that we need to discipline our way through. Like this return home to your body, to the feelings that are coming from it, to embodying like your most fully alive and expressed self is something that your body is going to probably resist at first, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's unfamiliar. It's not the thing that you've been doing. So it's uncomfortable. And, the home itself has historically been less safe than like the scan of the home. Like that's been the thing that's automatically done. The second you get put in front of a mirror, like the woman I was talking about earlier, she's like, I've been avoiding pictures now, right? Because it's like I'm constantly scanning, and I'm telling other people to get in the picture, but I'm constantly scanning for what my own body looks like. And when she had that reframe, it's like, oh, I want to feel strong. And then I look back at the picture and like, oh, I do look strong, right? And oh, like I'm comparing it to my first picture when I was there. So you're allowed to be slow at this first. This is something that as we're talking about this, it's like I get really, I don't want to say worked up about it, but it's like there was no manual given to women about how to do this, right? The first woman you saw was most likely your mom or your caretaker or your whoever, right? Like someone who you saw before, maybe even, their society, people in society, there's, celebrities, like people used to watch in the movies, right? All of these things where it's like all these external versions before you could even determine what your internal version wanted to look like. So it's like this comparison has been happening for a long time. And so you're allowed to be slow as you're figuring it out. You're allowed to do it imperfectly at first, right? And you're not behind on your healing or your you're not behind on your healing that comparison habit, because like it sounds even funnier to say it like that. Like, oh, I need to be ahead of fixing this thing. But if I don't actually understand why I'm doing this thing, then how could I ever get ahead of it?
Yeah. And I think I like the idea of shifting the way that we look at comparison to identify it as a habit, because it helps us to understand the nature of it, right? Just like any other habit, there is an unlearning and a learning that has to happen simultaneously. And if we want a good habit to stick, we have to take the bad, quote unquote, bad habit or the antithesis of it that's causing the good habit to not stick. We have to unlearn that at the same time that we're trying to incorporate the new one. And we also have to practice it regularly. So it is something that by that definition, it's not a switch. We're not going to be able to just flip it and decide that we're going to stop comparing it. It's natural, and it's something that has to be reworked and recalibrated over time. And the next time that you find yourself being triggered by someone else's success, and it will happen, right? It probably even happened today at some point. It's like, don't argue with it. Don't try to overcompensate with like performative generosity. Don't shit on yourself and audit your character and say like, oh, I'm a terrible person for, feeling this way about this other person's success. Like, just take the sentence that your head produced and remove the other woman from it. And whatever is left is the belief that you've actually been caring about yourself. And that's, it's not about her. It's never really been about her. It's the story that you're telling yourself about yourself. And now you get to start to look at the wording behind it, and you can't work on a pattern that you can't see. So now you get to see it.
Yeah. And it's also reaffirming yourself that this other woman or whatever externally that you're seeing, she's not ahead of you. She's not even in your race.
No.
Like, she's in a whole different lane, right? There's no one in your race. There's only you. There's no crowd. There's no clock. There's nobody holding a stopwatch to your life of where you need to be except you.
Except you.
Can we put it down for a second? Like, not forever, but just for today. If you catch yourself scrolling tonight and you feel that tightness in your chest, or you feel like I need to be somewhere different, can you just smile at like, oh, what's possible, right? Like, can you just see that this is something outside of myself? And here's a question for myself. Am I inspired by this, or am I triggered by this? Because what I'm triggered by, I can sit with. But if I'm inspired, I'm like, I don't need to keep going down a rabbit hole. I can take whatever's from there and decide what I want to do with that. Like, oh, I'm inspired, I'm going to try that tomorrow, or whatever, right? Like, can you not shame your body for doing what's normal? Right?
Mm-hmm.
And just ask that this is your body's doing an old job that you don't need it to do anymore, right? So even just speaking to your body, again, the physical, stand up, like doing something, tapping, right? Like, I hear you, body. I know, girl, I know you felt that way. Like, I know it didn't feel good, but you don't need to do that no more. We're not there, right? Like, I love you. I got you. Like, we are making changes, whatever, right? I think the more you stop shaming yourself for doing this, the more you can then stop doing this, right? Like, the more you can start to change that habit. But the more you shame yourself for doing that, you're just going to keep staying in that loop.
Yeah. So if any of this resonated with you, if you found it helpful, we strongly encourage you to implement that practice at least once. Just try it out and see how it goes. And if you know anybody that would also benefit from that, please share this episode with them.
Yes. Share the episode with a friend. Like, share, subscribe, all the normal things that we normally tell you afterwards. And if you heard something in here where maybe you felt that tightness of your chest recently, right? Tell us about it. We want to hear what resonates with you from the episode, so that we can know like what hit different today when you heard it.
Yeah. We'll see you next time.
Bye.